Hello everyone, it's Todd here, and this is the continuation of the Great Manifestation Baiting 60-Day, 60-Night Adventure Challenge. As you probably saw from the first few videos, I was on my way down towards Brighton and Worthing to meet with a very good friend of mine, Jurgen Ziewe, who is a very talented artist, as you can see, and out-of-body explorer with 40 years of experience, and also the author of an amazing, fantastic book called Multidimensional Man. So, Jurgen, welcome, and thank you for having me into your home. I appreciate that.
Hi, Todd. Nice to be with you again.
Well, as you know, Jurgen, my road trip is all about manifestation, and I have this, sort of philosophy that, manifestation is empowered to sort of one of its highest levels, if you like, by us being very much sort of focused in the moment, and I think by being focused in the moment, this allows us to observe our thoughts as well as to consciously set intent. I understand you've got a similar sort of philosophy with your sort of concept of reality awareness. Do you want to sort of expand on that for us?
Yes, I think it started off very early when I was a student in my early 20s, and at that time there was this new awakening taking place, basically the student movement of the 60s and things like that, and everybody was talking a bit like now about consciousness and mind expansion and things like that, and I found myself being roped a little bit into this mindset, but I soon discovered that there is a lot more to it, and I went through a period of depression, and somebody suggested I should start meditation. On top of that, what I always wanted to find out all my life was what is really reality, what is the truth of it, or what is the underlying thing. And I started reading a lot of books, like most people do, especially when they're young, and I became very dissatisfied because people were telling me different things, and so I thought, okay, if truth is at the heart of everything, then I'm in just as much a good position to find it than any of the philosophers or anybody else who talks about it. So I discarded the idea of reading and started meditation, and the reason for meditation was to get to the root of thought, to get to the root of what is at the base of everything. And this was my objective, and it's never changed. The thing I'm most keenly interested in is reality, is what is, rather than the ideas we form about it, and in the end, after practicing meditation for 40 years, I came to the conclusion much earlier than now that it is really, reality is just something that can only be accessed through the present, through being aware and not being sidetracked by the chatter of our mind, the thoughts and everything, but just to access a stillness which is all around us all the time, and this stillness allows us then to see reality for what it is.
So, with that in mind, what do you think then of the sort of cornucopia of belief systems and I guess the way we project onto reality?
But the thing is, we are all people, we are all struggling to make sense of the world around us. And if we didn't have some sort of reference system, we would feel absolutely lost. My favorite phrase is that we are islands in infinity. And the way we construct our islands is by gathering around ourselves certain thoughts, certain identities, and so on, and then we function on the basis of these identities within our social construct system, and so on. And we are quite happy with it. But what it does, it cements us into a position, and when our belief system or construct is threatened in any way, then we become very unhappy, and then we lose our way, and we have to get and construct a new belief system around where the position is where we are at the moment. And that is a great sort of struggle, and can be very distracting, and we very often lose the focal point. You know, it is very scary when we imagine that there is no such thing, and there's just an infinity of possibilities around us, and a consciousness which could be almost anything. And unless we realize what this consciousness is, we will always be lost. And the way to access the consciousness is basically to let go of our structure and belief system, and then we realize that underneath all this is just stillness, it's just presence, and that's what we have to focus on, I think.
Beautiful. That's well articulated.
Thank you.
So, of course, what's going to be, I guess, on a lot of people's minds is this aspect of the out-of-body state of consciousness. This is, I guess, for the journey of truth. This is one of the main focuses of my own work.
Yes.
And so I guess people would naturally be curious about how this became, a part of your life.
Yes, it's a very strange thing, because as I kept meditation up on a regular basis from 1 to 2 hours every morning, some curious things started to happen. Very early on, I had some very powerful waking experiences, as I now refer to as basically the consciousness moves into a higher gear, and you become more aware, and you also become aware of a newer meaning of yourself, where you suddenly burst through the identifications you have built up about yourself, and you think, hang on a minute, there's really something else which I wasn't aware of what I am. But the main thing, what happened after a few years, I spontaneously found myself in the morning when I woke up, I found myself standing outside my mother's house, knowing very well that I was 50 miles away asleep in my bed. And this really had a startling effect on me, because I didn't know what was happening, and yet I was fully awake. Not only awake, but I was super awake to such an extent that I really, unsettled me. And I could see everything, not just in front of me, but 360 degrees around me. And then I panicked. I thought, why am I here? How do I get back? Have I got money for the bus?
Money for the bus.
and so with this startling realization, I suddenly snapped back into my body, and there was literally no break in consciousness. I just opened my eyes. I was back in my bed. And this was the beginning of it all, because at first I thought I had some sort of fit, or I had a mental problem, or maybe I had a brain tumor or something very strange has happened to me, because I had never heard about this phenomena before. It was only when I went to the library, and finally, after going through all the sections on psychology, then parapsychology, I found a book about the doppelganger, and that's what I felt. I had a doppelganger. There was two of me, one which was a disembodied aspect of myself, and the other one was a physical aspect. And when I read about it, I suddenly became curious about the phenomena. But it was not until I came to England and I discovered a book by Robert Monroe, which was probably the only book at the time. There were a few others. There were, I think, somebody called Oliver Fox. I looked in all these books on astral travel, and I found they all supported my experience. And then something very curious happened. I started getting very interested in the phenomena, because I thought, oh well, this allows for great possibility. And simultaneously, I had more out-of-body experiences. And the more out-of-body experiences I had, the more addicted almost I became in it, because I suddenly thought, this is amazing. We are basically superhuman beings. We can do anything, we can be anywhere, there are unlimited possibilities.